Thank you, Ciaran Corla. Once again, we stand to deliver a budget against an extraordinary backdrop of uncertainty and challenge. We know that many of our people are finding it very difficult to make ends meet, face difficult choices in their daily lives, and are seeing their household bills rise seemingly by the day. We know that many are genuinely worried about what lies ahead in the months to come. We know too that many of our businesses that survived COVID with the support of government now face a new, serious threat in the form of dramatic energy price rises. Our experience over the last 3 years and the manner in which we collectively responded demonstrates our resilience as a nation. We continue to navigate the uncertainties of Brexit. We got through the long, dark days of COVID, and we are responding with compassion and resolve to the dreadful invasion of Ukraine. We are doing this together, both here in Ireland and in cooperation with our international partners. These are not normal times. The war in Ukraine continues to have far-reaching ramifications across so many areas of life as we know it. We have not experienced inflation like this for 40 years. Broad-based inflation, such as what we are currently experiencing, impacts negatively on living standards across the board and requires a carefully balanced response. At times such as this, people understandably look to their government for direction, for reassurance and for meaningful help. Today, we are responding. This is a budget for its time, a budget that seeks to respond with unprecedented resources, with a breadth of measures and a speed of execution we have not seen before. We do not suggest that this budget will meet every need. That would not be possible. It is in everyone's interests that our national finances are managed carefully and that we guard against current and future risks. But this budget will make a difference, and people will see that difference quickly. We should not forget that the scale of response we are bringing forward today is possible only because of the strong and swift rebound in our economy and our public finances. We should never put at risk or take for granted the pro-enterprise policies that underpin Ireland's economic success. Ciaran Corla, this government has proactively responded throughout the past 12 months with a range of tax and spending measures totalling €3 billion to alleviate pressure on households and exposed sectors of our economy. Today, Minister Donoghue and I are announcing a further winter cost of living, business and public service support measures totalling €4.4 billion, comprising of €1.7 billion to be administered through the tax system and €2.7 billion of spending measures, with €300 million of this amount being funded from the contingency reserve. This is in addition to a core Budget 2023 package of €6.9 billion, €5.8 billion in expenditure and €1.3 billion in tax. The expenditure measures I outlined today are threefold. They comprise immediate assistance for individual households and businesses, a package of support for public services, sports clubs, community and voluntary organisations to be provided this year to help with energy and other costs, and a comprehensive range of new measures for next year. Turning first to the measures to be implemented this year. Every household is impacted by rising energy prices, and in addition to targeted measures, we believe it is important that we provide a level of support to all households. I am providing for electricity credits for all households totalling €600 to be paid in 3 instalments of €200. The first payment will be made before Christmas, with 2 further instalments in the new year. The total cost of this measure is €1.2 billion. To provide further assistance with energy bills to the most vulnerable, in addition to the normal weekly fuel allowance payment, a lump sum of €400 will be made before Christmas to recipients of the fuel allowance. To support those in receipt of a weekly social welfare payment, I am providing for a once-off double-week cost of living support payment to all qualifying social protection recipients. This will be paid in October and will include pensioners, carers, people on disability payments and job seekers. I can confirm to the House that the normal Christmas bonus will be paid again this year in early December. To support low-income working households, I am providing for an additional lump sum payment of €500 to those in receipt of the Working Family Payment. This will be payable in November. Also in November, we will make a double child benefit payment to all qualifying households. This is worth €140 per child, in addition to the normal monthly payment. To acknowledge the additional costs that carers, who provide invaluable support, are incurring at this time, we will be making a payment of €500 to those who qualify for the Carer Support Grant in November. We will also make a once-off payment before Christmas of €200 to those in receipt of the Living Alone allowance. In addition, it's important that we acknowledge that persons living with a disability face additional costs. In this regard, a once-off payment of €500 to those who qualify for disability allowance, invalidity pension and the blind pension will be made in November. To support students and their families, I am announcing a range of measures that will benefit young people in this budget, including a once-off reduction in the student contribution of €1,000 for eligible students in the 2022-23 education year, and a once-off double monthly payment for those in receipt of the SUSI maintenance grant. There will also be a once-off €1,000 increase to the postgraduate fee contribution grant. In addition, I am extending the 20% public transport fare reduction and the youth travel card discount of 50% on all operator services to the end of 2023. The total value of the new cost of living measures for households is €2.2 billion and will provide much needed help to individuals and families. This package of measures has been designed to help alleviate the financial burden faced by all households, but in particular to provide extra assistance to those who need it the most. In addition to the need to provide cash support for households, I am acutely conscious of the pressure that rising prices, especially energy costs, are putting on the delivery of vital public services. And therefore I am allocating additional funds this year across a number of different areas in order to ensure continuity of service delivery. I am making €100 million available this year to ensure schools are supported in dealing with the energy cost pressures they will face in the months ahead, and to support school transport providers. An additional €10 million will be made available for further and higher education institutions. I am allocating €60 million this year to local authorities and €110 million to a range of health-funded bodies, including nursing homes, hospices and Section 39 organisations. This additional funding for the health sector will provide further once-off support in the coming months this year for organisations to deliver important services across areas such as disabilities, older persons and mental health in the context of the significant challenges being faced currently. Not-for-profit and voluntary organisations in the arts, sport, Gaeltacht and in the community and voluntary sectors are woven into the fabric of community life across Ireland. But they are very vulnerable to the severe impact of increased energy bills, and I am making €60 million available in 2022 to ease the pressures in these sectors. The framework for this assistance will be put in place in the next few weeks to ensure that they get the benefit this year. In addition to the measures I have already outlined for the remainder of 2022, I am also providing significant support throughout next year through the social welfare system. It is appropriate that we target our resources most strongly to those who need it the most. To that end, I am pleased to announce a social protection package for next year worth €1 billion to support households and families across Ireland. For an individual in receipt of a weekly social welfare payment, I am providing for an increase of €12 per week, with proportionate increases for qualified adults. Recognising the pressures on working families, I am increasing the working family payment thresholds by €40 per week. To further support families through this time, I am raising the qualified child increase for under 12s to €42 per week and for over 12s to €50 per week. The fuel allowance, as we all know, is a very effective means of targeting support at people who need help with energy bills. We have made significant additional payments to people in receipt of this allowance this year, and I believe it's important we extend the allowance to other vulnerable households. From the 1st of January, the qualifying income threshold for the fuel allowance will increase from €120 to €200 above the relevant rate of the state pension contributory. For over 70s specifically, I'm increasing the weekly fuel allowance means test limit to €500 for a single person and €1,000 for a couple. I'm increasing the rate of domiciliary care allowance by €20.50 to €330 per month, and making this allowance available to parents of babies who have to remain in hospital for 6 months. I'm increasing the top-up payment to participants in the Community Employment, TUS and Rural Social Scheme by €5 to €25 per week, and I will also provide funding for access to the higher rate of Jobs Plus subsidy for employers hiring candidates from disadvantaged and minority backgrounds. Taken together, the measures we are rightly introducing this year and next year represent very substantial state support for the most vulnerable. Ceann Comhairle, by means of one example, a single pensioner living alone in receipt of the fuel allowance will receive an additional €2,375 between now and the end of next year as a result of the announcements I'm making today. Childcare is a basic necessity for tens of thousands of families throughout Ireland. The cost of childcare for many of those families is simply too expensive, and at a time of rising household bills, the pressure this cost places on many families is considerable. Today, I'm providing the funding to support a reduction of up to 25% in the weekly fee for those availing of the National Childcare Scheme, costing €121 million. This measure will put up to €175 a month, or over €2,100 a year, back in the pockets of parents next year. I'm making a further allocation of €59 million to the recently established core funding model, which will provide for extra hours and enhanced capacity in the sector. Under the new employment regulation order, those working in the childcare sector will see improved pay and conditions to better reflect the importance of the work they undertake in providing quality care for our children. Next year, the childcare budget will reach €1 billion, 5 years ahead of target. Alongside the measures announced last year, this funding will help to make childcare more affordable, improve the wages of staff, and help to ensure the sustainability for childcare providers. In recognition of the cost of living pressures faced by students and their families, I am providing funding next year to reduce the student contribution fee by €500 on a permanent basis for eligible families earning between €62,000 and €100,000 per year. The income limit to qualify for a 50% reduction in student fees under SUSI will be increased from €55,240 to €62,000, and all SUSI maintenance grants will be increased by between 10 and 14% in September of next year. The postgraduate fee contribution grant for eligible students of €3,500 will increase by €500, and the PhD stipend will increase too. Further details of these measures will be announced by the Minister shortly. Further details of additional cost of living measures are provided in the Budget 23 Expenditure Report prepared by my department and published on gov.ie. Ceann Comhairle, turning to wider spending measures, in the current uncertain environment, a managed adjustment to our medium-term expenditure rule is an appropriate response to the extraordinary circumstances we now face. The medium-term budgetary strategy has been adjusted on a once-off basis for next year to allow core public spending to grow by 6.3%. Overall, in 2023, I am providing €90.4 billion in public expenditure. €85.9 billion of this is core expenditure. This is facilitating a €5.8 billion expenditure package in 2023. This includes an extra €800 million which will be made available under the National Development Plan for core capital spending to help in delivering the largest, the greenest and the most ambitious infrastructure plan in the history of our country. We continue to deal with the aftermath of the pandemic, the repercussions from Brexit and the effects of the war in Ukraine. I am therefore making provision for €4.5 billion for potential non-core expenditure next year, €1.8 billion of which will be allocated to departments, with the remainder held centrally in reserve. Housing remains a key priority for this government. Through Housing for All and the National Development Plan, The Government has committed a record €4.5 billion next year in public funding for the provision of more social, affordable and cost rental homes. After a decade of undersupply, we are now seeing significant progress. We've seen the highest number of housing completions in over a decade and the highest number of first-time buyers in 15 years, with 16,000 purchasing homes in the past 12 months. It's clear, however, that more needs to be done. For many, rents are too high, and the hope of owning their own home seems out of reach. It is an objective of this Government to provide opportunity for those who aspire to home ownership. We have launched the new First Home Shared Equity Scheme, and Minister Donoghue has today announced the extension of the Help to Buy scheme. This Government continues to support Housing for All with unprecedented levels of current and capital funding. Next year, I am allocating a record €6.2 billion in Exchequer funding to the Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage, of which the majority, €3.5 billion, will be in the form of capital investment. €1.7 billion will be allocated to the Department of Housing next year to deliver the social housing new build target of 9,100 homes. I am announcing a €99 million increase in funding for existing schemes, including the Social Housing Current Expenditure Programme, which will support nearly 6,500 additional new social housing units through approved housing bodies, new build, delivery and leases. In total next year, there will be €215 million, an increase of €40 million allocated to three key affordable schemes: the Local Authority Affordable Purchase Scheme, the AHB Cost Rental Scheme and the National First Home Shared Equity Scheme. Alongside LDA delivery, these schemes will support the provision of over 5,000 affordable homes next year. I am also providing €215 million for homelessness services. This is a €21 million increase in the homelessness provision and will provide vital assistance to those who are the most vulnerable in our society. There is an unprecedented €87 million being allocated to the retrofitting of social housing in 2023. €61 million is being allocated to schemes to tackle vacancy and promote regeneration in urban areas by addressing vacant social homes and funding the Croí Cónaithe schemes. Further measures through the Department include record Exchequer capital investment of over €930 million in our water services next year, €4.3 million to support the formal establishment of the Maritime Area Regulatory Authority, or MARA, early next year. MARA will be a key enabler in respect of Ireland's ambitions in the offshore renewable energy sector. Significant additional funding to our heritage programme, particularly including a focus on resourcing our National Parks and Wildlife Service, both in relation to staff and finances, and implementing the recommendations of the review published earlier this year. Ceann Comhairle, the last number of years have been an extraordinarily challenging time for the health service, and the Government has responded with record levels of investment. This allowed us to deal with the immediate impact of COVID, significantly expand core services and accelerate Sláinte care reforms so that we emerge from the pandemic with a much more resilient and responsive public health system. The expansion in capacity has been unprecedented in its scale and speed, with approximately 15,000 new staff and 2,000 new hospital and community beds having been added across the health service since the pandemic started. This budget continues this very high level of investment in our public health system by providing for a total allocation of €23.4 billion. This provides for a €1.15 billion increase in core current funding, a 2023 COVID allocation of over €750 million and an additional €117 million as part of the agreed NDP allocations for the delivery of additional health infrastructure. This budget will allow for the continuation of public health system capacity expansion in line with Sláinte care. Significant progress will be made through the delivery of 650 acute and community beds by the end of next year. Funding is also provided for the recruitment of up to 6,000 additional staff to further enhance capacity and improve access across a wide range of acute and social care services. This builds upon 2 record years for recruitment in the health system. The Government is committed to further tackling waiting lists that have been impacted by the pandemic and has demonstrated this through the significant level of funding provided for the Waiting List Action Plan that is being implemented this year. To ensure that progress continues, I am allocating a further €225 million in Budget 2023 to provide for an overall package of €443 million for waiting lists next year. This will fund a continuation of measures designed to reduce waiting times for outpatient, day case and inpatient care, improve access to community diagnostics and address backlogs in the provision of assessments of need for people with a disability. €5 million has been provided in additional funding for our oral health services on a recurring basis, as well as specific once-off provision this year of €9 million within the overall waiting list fund to address oral health backlogs. Continuing the progress made over the last few years as part of the Sláinte Care Reform Programme, this budget will enhance access to vital services by reducing financial barriers to care, which is particularly important given the cost of living increases being experienced across society. In line with Government and Sláinte Care commitments, funding has been allocated to address health charges and expand eligibility by removing hospital inpatient charges for all public patients, building on a measure that was first introduced in last year's budget that removed these charges for children under 16. Extending the provision of free GP care to more than 400,000 people, with implementation of the commitment to extend to 6- and 7-year-olds before the end of this year, and extension to those on or below the median level of income. Maintaining a continued focus in 2023 on investing in women's health care, including expanding free contraception currently available to women aged 17 to 25 and to those from aged 16 to 30 years, providing supports for the first time in relation to public access to IVF treatment, expanding women's health hubs and providing additional funding for screening and other women's healthcare services. This budget also provides for substantial investment in our health and social care services, including funding of €138 million, including €29 million for new developments to strengthen disability services through provision of additional respite, day service and residential places in line with the Disability Capacity Review. €150 million for older persons, including €18 million in new measures for the age-friendly home programme to support older people living at home, the development of a national dementia strategy and to support the introduction of a new adult safeguarding policy. An overall increase of €58 million for mental health, incorporating €14 million to continue the increased provision of emergency placements within mental health, with further funding to ensure continued progress towards sharing the vision objectives. Finally, this budget provides funding for the ongoing necessary public health response to COVID. €439 million of the COVID allocation next year will be used to continue funding public health measures such as PPE, testing and tracing and vaccinations. For generations, Ceann Comhairle, Ireland has been renowned internationally for the high calibre and quality of our education system. It is important that while we face temporary pressures, we continue to invest in our education system, in our children, in our future. To that end, today I am allocating €9.6 billion to the Department of Education next year, including a capital budget of €860 million. This allocation will support the continued progression of around 300 building projects that are currently at construction. The continued rollout of the NDP will involve a further 150 school building projects that are currently at advanced design or tender stage, getting under construction over the course of next year. A strong focus of the school building programme is delivering additional capacity for special classes, particularly at post-primary level and also for special schools. This government has prioritised special education. The last 3 budgets have delivered over 3,300 additional SNAs and over 2,000 additional special ed teachers. Today's budget allows for 686 additional teachers to support those with special educational needs in special classes, special schools and mainstream settings, with an additional 1,194 SNAs. This will be the highest number of SNAs we have ever had in our country's education system, at over 20,300. I am pleased to confirm funding for a reduction in the staffing schedule by 1 point for all primary schools, which is the lowest in the history of the state, providing 370 additional teaching posts. This builds on the previous 2 budgets and now reduces the pupil-teacher ratio for 3 years in a row. Count Corla, we know that buying school books can add further pressure to families at an expensive time of the year as children go back to school. Today, I am providing funding for free school books for all pupils in recognised primary schools within the free education system from September of next year. This measure will benefit well over 500,000 pupils all across our country and is a reflection on the value we place on an education for all.
Hear, hear. Michael.
The Department of Education will work closely with schools and other stakeholders in the coming months on the implementation of this major reform. In recognition of the ongoing impact that COVID-related school closures and disruption has had on our school system, I am providing funding for the continuation of the enhanced summer programme for a further year, as well as other wellbeing and inclusion supports. Investing in our further and higher education and research sector is a priority for the Government and is essential if we are to maintain a modern, knowledge-based and innovative economy. Next year I am allocating €3.9 billion to this sector. Reflecting its vital role, I am providing €150 million over this year and next in additional funding to strengthen the financial position of the higher education sector and to help ensure its long-term sustainable funding. In order to deliver on the Housing for All and climate action plans, we need to invest in skill through apprenticeships and further education and training. I am providing funding for 2,500 additional apprenticeship places and 4,500 registrations. I am also providing over 11,000 upskilling and reskilling opportunities for those sectors most impacted by Brexit and over 2,000 SkillNet places in sustainable finance, green tech and climate change. A strong enterprise base is fundamental for the success of any economy. Today I am allocating an additional €36 million to the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment, supporting investment in areas such as digitalisation and the green economy. Our businesses must be innovative to avail of the opportunities of tomorrow and continue to drive growth. Today's budget will enable Enterprise Ireland to enhance their science and technology programmes. It will also allow further calls to take place under the Disruptive Technologies Innovation Fund. The work of the IDA in attracting foreign direct investment to Ireland has led to the creation of so many high-skilled and well-paid jobs. This budget will support the IDA property programme and investment in advanced manufacturing facilities. The micro and SME community are the backbone of the economy, providing employment in every town and village in our country. Increased funding for local enterprise offices under this budget will deliver on the programme for government commitment to expand the current service provision to those companies with more than 10 employees. It will also allow for the continued rollout of the energy efficiency scheme for small firms. In addition to the temporary business energy support scheme announced by Minister Donoghue today, the Government this morning approved a Ukraine enterprise crisis scheme worth €200 million for firms operating in the manufacturing and their internationally traded services sectors. This Government remains committed to delivering the €165 billion National Development Plan. In overall terms, over €12 billion will be made available next year for vital infrastructure investment across Ireland. To safeguard the delivery of key projects, I have announced changes to the Public Works contract during the year to meet the challenge of rising energy and construction materials costs. In addition, my department is continuing to engage with the construction sector to increase digital adoption and establish cleaner, greener and more modern methods of construction. Ceann Comhairle, we stand at a crossroads in global affairs. We are, along with our European neighbours, in the midst of what is certainly the greatest crisis in global energy markets since the 1970s, and perhaps ever. If there is one silver lining to this, it is that there is broad agreement on the solution to the crisis. We need to reduce our dependence on energy imports, particularly from Russia, by becoming more efficient in how we use energy, and especially by accelerating the shift to renewable energy in line with our existing climate goals. Making progress will, of course, require additional investment. That is why I am providing €850 million in capital investment to the Department of the Environment, Climate and Communications next year. €337 million of this will go towards grants for energy efficiency. This will fund over 37,000 home energy upgrades, including households in or at risk of energy poverty through the Warmer Home Scheme. This is the highest funding ever committed to energy efficiency. Alongside the grant supports that will be available, funding will also be provided to support the introduction of a new low-cost loan scheme for residential retrofitting. As set out in the programme for government, every additional euro raised in carbon tax will be returned to the people of Ireland through energy efficiency upgrades, social protection schemes to protect the most vulnerable, and measures to incentivise farming in a more environmentally friendly way. An additional €211 million will be made available next year, bringing the total carbon tax revenue available next year for investment to €623 million. Almost half of this in funds raised by the carbon tax will be invested in improving the energy efficiency of our homes. Targeted social welfare measures will also be undertaken, such as the increase to the qualified child payment and increases in both the thresholds for eligibility to the working family payment and the means test for eligibility for fuel allowance. The total investment in these three measures alone is estimated at €57 million. This will be part funded by carbon tax receipts. In total, the carbon tax will fund €218 million of social protection spending next year. €81 million in carbon tax funding will be provided to the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine next year. This increased funding will be used to fund the new Agri-Climate Rural Scheme detailed in Ireland's Common Agricultural Policy Strategic Plan. This will support up to 50,000 farmers who undertake actions that will support improved outcomes in biodiversity, climate, air and water quality. The National Development Plan sets out national investment priorities for the transport sector all the way to 2030. I am allocating €3.5 billion, inclusive of current expenditure, to the Department to support the delivery of a range of projects next year. I am allocating €2.6 billion of capital funding to transport. This represents the highest level of capital investment since 2008. This will help us to progress key transport infrastructural projects, including Bus Connects, Metrolink and the Dart Plus programme. This investment in our transport network, the reductions announced in passenger fares and the continued rollout of electric vehicle grants will assist us greatly in meeting our ambitious climate targets. As well as offering educational and recreational opportunities to rural Ireland, the National Broadband Plan provides households throughout the country with the ability to take up remote work. The implementation of the plan has passed 75,000 households, with funding of €217.5 million allocated next year to reach a target of up to 185,000 households by the end of 2023. Ceann Comhairle, the importance of having a strong sense of community was never more evident than over the past 2 years. Now, in the aftermath of the worst of the pandemic, the emergence of the hybrid working model has reinvigorated many rural communities. Connectivity through rural connective hubs, as well as connecting rural communities through transport services, is vital to keeping our rural communities alive and giving them the opportunity to thrive. The Government continues to be committed to our rural communities, and so I am providing an investment of €390 million for rural and community development. This funding will help deliver on key commitments set out in our Rural Future and the National Development Plan, as well as an inclusive and regionally balanced recovery and remote working capabilities. In addition to the core funding for next year, I am providing €11 million for the continued response to the Ukrainian refugee crisis at community level to help integrate arrivals from the Ukraine into our local communities. Recognising the increased cost of living for all sectors, €10 million is also being provided directly to the Department for immediate supports to community groups to assist in managing increased costs. Agriculture is arguably the most important sector in our rural economy and is centred at the heart of many towns and villages across Ireland. Today I am allocating €2.1 billion for the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine for next year, an increase of €283 million on the 2022 allocation. 2023 is an important year for the sector, with the commencement of the new almost €10 billion CAP strategic plan 2023 to 27. Over €500 million of the allocation will further strengthen the sustainability of Irish agriculture and drive the sector's climate ambitions. The agri-food sector is an important contributor to our rural and our national economy. In recognition of its exposure to the potential adverse impacts of Brexit, I am allocating €238 million from the Brexit Adjustment Reserve for measures to alleviate the impact of Brexit on the sector. In line with the programme for government undertaking on carbon tax, the 2023 portion of the carbon tax funds for agriculture are included in the allocation for the new Acres agri-environmental scheme as part of the CAP strategic plan. I am providing an additional €150 million for the justice sector in 2023 to enable continued investment in existing services and new measures. High visibility policing is crucial to making sure that communities across the country are safe and feel safe. That is why we need to continue to strengthen An Garda Síochána as they protect and service. And I am pleased to announce today that funding is being made available to recruit a further 1,000 Gardaí into the Garda College next year. An additional 430 Garda civilian staff will also free up more frontline Gardaí for core policing duties. A new recruitment campaign next year will also help us to guarantee that there are 200 new recruits entering Templemore every 3 months over the coming years. In addition, a €5 million increase in the overtime budget for An Garda Síochána to over €100 million means that the Gardaí will be deployed as needed to tackle crime and antisocial behaviour in our communities. Funding for justice also supports the delivery of an ambitious 5-year programme of reform to address service demand and to support the establishment of a new statutory agency for domestic, sexual and gender-based violence. Additional funding is also provided for the establishment of the new Gambling Regulatory Authority, further implementation of the Youth Justice Strategy, the Community Safety and Innovation Fund, the Courts Modernisation Programme and additional staffing and operational supports for the Irish Prison Service and Data Protection Commission. Defence is also receiving a significant increase in investment of €67 million in 2023 to nearly €1.2 billion. This year, the Commission on the Defence Forces recommended transformational changes to Ireland's defence organisation. This allocation will include pay and allowance enhancements for serving members of our defence forces, the establishment of the new transformation posts to lead this change, and a provision for the recruitment, training and support of a projected 400 additional members of the permanent defence forces next year. The capital allocation for defence will increase by €35 million, or 25%, to €176 million. This is a step change in capital funding for defence and will be used to prioritise the development of a primary radar capability to secure our airspace and upgrades in force protection and defence forces infrastructure projects. 2023 is the 50th anniversary of the Government's development programme Irish Aid. I am very pleased that we will mark this anniversary by increasing total support for official development assistance to over €1.2 billion in 2023, an increase of €177 million on 2022. The overall increase includes an additional €100 million for Irish Aid, representing a 17% year-on-year increase. We are resolute in our solidarity and support for the people of Ukraine against Russian aggression. €75 million of the increased funding for ODA in 2023 will be to provide a response to the humanitarian needs within Ukraine and its immediate neighbours, as well as a response to the wider food security consequences of the invasion, most notably in Africa and parts of the Middle East. In view of the urgent need, I am allocating a further €30 million to the Department of Foreign Affairs this year. This funding will be used to provide additional humanitarian assistance for victims of the devastating food security crisis in the Horn of Africa. The tourism, culture, arts, Gaeltacht, sports and media sectors are progressing through the post-COVID pandemic recovery phase. With the easing of restrictions, attendance and participation rates have improved, though they remain below pre-COVID levels. I am conscious of the need to provide support again next year for these sectors. Therefore, as well as providing an additional €45 million in core funding to support these sectors, I am also providing temporary funding of €90 million next year to help consolidate their recovery from the pandemic. In the Department's overall allocation of over €1.1 billion, providing €15 million for Fáilte Ireland initiatives, an overall allocation of €130 million to maintain the Arts Council's level of funding in 2023, €1.25 million to support Irish as a living language in the Gaeltacht communities, and €4 million for high-performance athletes to prepare for the Olympics and Paralympics in 2024. Next year marks the 25th anniversary, Ceann Comhairle, of the historic Good Friday Agreement. Based on the simple idea of cooperation between those of different backgrounds and faiths, it has been pivotal in bringing peace and reconciliation to this island. Much progress has been made in those 25 years, and this government continues to deepen connections and cooperation across the island of Ireland. To deliver all island projects, this government is allocating €100 million to progress the Shared Island Fund and have committed to allocating €500 million of NDP funding out to 2025. We are progressing major cross-border infrastructure projects such as the Ulster Canal and a new generation of investments to help address shared challenges and opportunities on an all-island basis. I also look forward to the implementation of the forthcoming Peace Plus North-South Cooperation Programme, jointly supported by the European Union, the Irish and British governments and the Northern Ireland Executive. Peace Plus represents a record €1.1 billion cross-border investment in support of shared peace and prosperity on the island of Ireland. Next year will also represent 50 years of Ireland being a part of the European Union. Ireland benefits significantly from this shared community of now 27 member states and access to almost 450 million people in a single market. Recent years in particular have highlighted the importance of the solidarity of the European family of which we are part. As the member state most directly impacted by Brexit, the €1 billion of funding reserved for Ireland from the Brexit Adjustment Reserve was very much welcomed. This is the largest single allocation for any member state, and it is continuing to help counter the adverse economic and social consequences of Brexit. The Recovery and Resilience Facility, under which Ireland is set to receive almost €1 billion in EU funding over the period out to 2026, supports all member states in mitigating the impacts of the pandemic. This funding will allow Ireland to continue on our path of an equitable, green and a digital recovery. We will also receive €1.4 billion in cohesion policy funding for the 2021 to 27 period. When this funding is co-financed at a national level, it will mean cohesion policy programmes add a total of almost €3.5 billion to the economy. Ceann Comhairle, with the scale of expenditure I have just outlined comes increased responsibility to target resources to create the most impact and to ensure value for money. There are a number of reform agenda initiatives that my department are progressing: performance and equality budgeting, and increasingly well-being and green budgetary elements are core to the budget process. Our spending review papers provide extensive policy analysis and evaluation on a diverse range of public spending areas, supporting evidence-based decisions. Our reform initiatives are also continuing to ensure the robust, transparent and considered oversight of public funds through key reforms to the Public Spending Code, aimed at strengthening our approach to capital expenditure management through an external assurance process, and a new major projects advisory group that supports government departments and my own in outlining the merits of a project. Building on this, my department is currently working with the OECD to update our public spending code framework to ensure it is robust in the face of changing priorities and to ensure it takes appropriate account of the climate and the environmental impact of the investment decisions that we make. At Ceann Comhairle, this past year has seen restrictions lifted, and for the most part, life has returned to much of how it was pre-pandemic. In that, there is a lot to be thankful for: our health, our freedom, the strong bounce back in the economy, but we now face new, serious challenges. This budget seeks to strike the right balance, with a range of targeted measures to help those most in need, with universal supports, and with investment in our long-term policy objectives. This is a time of great change and no little turmoil across the world. I have no doubt the spirit of the Irish people will see us through, and our message to the people is clear. As a government, we will do the very best that we can to support you in the weeks, the months and the years ahead, And I do hope that, taken in the round, this budget shows our good faith to work with people and for people. Our shared hope has been the bedrock of our resilience over the past 3 years. We have overcome so much in such a short space of time, and together we will do so again. As Seamus Heaney once expressed, hope is not optimism which expects things to turn out well, but something rooted in the conviction that there is good worth working for. A better and a fairer Ireland is a good we will continue to strive for. I commend this budget to the House.